You won't believe what the detectives found in the library after dark. The old Carnegie Library was a tomb of forgotten stories after sunset, a place where the only light was the lonely glow from the librarian's desk. But Evelyn Ross wasn't just shelving books. Night after night, she was breaking the rules for a homeless girl who smelled of rain and desperation. She thought she was saving her. She never imagined the girl would be the key to unlocking her own stolen past. It began with a sandwich and a shared silence, a fragile friendship built in the safe harbor of the history aisle. The girl, Sophie, was a ghost with a brilliant mind, her eyes holding secrets too heavy for a 15-year-old. Evelyn felt a pull toward her, a maternal instinct she'd never known she possessed. Their quiet world shattered the moment two detectives stepped out of rain, their badges gleaming like a threat. "Are you Evelyn Ross? We need to talk about the girl you've been sheltering." Suddenly, an act of kindness was a crime. The detectives revealed Sophie was a missing heiress to the Arden fortune, but Sophie's terrified confession, they lied about everything, told a different story. A whispered warning from a detective. If she finds out who Sophie really is, everything will fall apart. Launched Evelyn on a desperate quest for the truth. What she discovered would unravel reality itself. A forged police report named Evelyn as the primary suspect in a child's disappearance, a child she never had. A hidden photograph in her mother's attic showed Sophie in her mother's arms 30 years ago, and a chilling text message warned, "Stop digging, Evelyn. You're not supposed to remember her." The truth was more sinister than she could have ever imagined. Confronting the icy matriarch of the Arden family, Evelyn learned the horrifying secret of the Hollow Creek Institute. They didn't just help children, they erased them. Their memories were wiped, their identities rewritten for wealthy buyers. Sophie wasn't just a runaway. She was Subject S, a genetic copy created in a lab. And Evelyn? She was Subject E, the Institute's first success. Her entire life as a quiet librarian was a fabricated lie implanted in her mind. The homeless girl she tried to save was her daughter, her sister, her mirror. The connection she felt wasn't chance. It was a biological imperative, a ghost of memory reaching out for its other half. Their escape and the exposure of the conspiracy is a story of betrayal and rebirth you have to see to believe. From a chilling arrest to a daring leak of classified files, Evelyn and Sophie fought not just for their freedom, but for their very right to exist. This is more than a story about a librarian and a homeless girl. It's a thriller about identity, motherhood, and the unbreakable bonds that even science cannot erase. If you were captivated by this journey into the darkest corners of memory and family, you need to see what we uncover next. Subscribe now. The truth is waiting, and every click reveals a new secret. Don't miss the next story that will leave you questioning everything you think you know. The old Carnegie Library was a tomb of forgotten stories after sunset, its towering shelves casting long shadows that danced in the dim security lights. Evelyn Ross moved through the silence like a ghost, her soft-soled shoes whispering across the polished floors. At 32, she was the library's permanent night attendant, a keeper of stories who preferred the company of books to people. Her life was a carefully ordered routine, until the night she found the girl curled in the history section, sleeping with a thick biography of Marie Curie as her pillow. Evelyn approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "We're closing now," she said softly. The girl's eyes flew open, ancient, wary eyes in a young face. "I'm sorry," she murmured, scrambling to gather her threadbare backpack. "I was just waiting for someone." That was how it began. Night after night, Sophie, as she eventually introduced herself, returned. She was 15, with sharp intelligence and shadows in her eyes that spoke of things Evelyn couldn't imagine. Slowly, carefully, Evelyn began offering what comfort she could: leftover sandwiches from the staff fridge, cups of hot tea, and the silent sanctuary of the library's warm corners. As weeks turned into a month, a fragile bond formed between them. Evelyn found herself looking forward to their quiet evenings, to the way Sophie's face would light up when she understood a difficult math concept, to the sound of her laughter when Evelyn read aloud from particularly amusing novels. The library, once merely a place of work, became alive with possibility. Everything changed on a rain-lashed Tuesday evening. Evelyn was locking the main doors when two men in trench coats stepped out of the storm. The taller one flashed a badge. "Evelyn Ross? We need to talk about the girl you've been sheltering." Inside her office, with rain hammering against the windows, the detectives laid out their case. Sophie Arden, missing heiress to the Arden fortune, 3 months disappeared. And Evelyn, a criminal for offering shelter. But that's not true. Sophie cried from the corner where she'd shrunk into herself. "They're not my family. They lied about everything." The lead detective, a man named Miller, gave Evelyn a look that was almost pitying. "The girl's confused," he said. But as his partner led a sobbing Sophie away, Miller leaned close and whispered words that would haunt Evelyn. "If she finds out who Sophie really is, everything will fall apart." That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The warning echoed in her mind, mixing with Sophie's desperate claims. Driven by a need for answers, she returned to the library and descended into the archival basement where public records were stored on microfiche and decaying computer systems. What she found made her blood run cold. A missing child report from 10 years ago for Sophie Ross. And in the box marked primary suspect, her own name stared back at her. It was impossible. She had never had a child. She would have remembered. A soft voice came from behind her in the dark. "They told me you'd come looking for me, just like before." Sophie stood at the foot of the stairs, her face pale in the flickering archival light. She'd slipped away from the detectives and come back. "They think they can make us forget," she whispered. "But some things are too important to forget." Sophie's word became a key that unlocked the door in Evelyn's mind. The next day, she drove to her childhood home, a place she hadn't visited since her mother's death 5 years earlier. The house stood empty and decaying, full of ghosts and unanswered questions. In the attic, beneath a loose floorboard where she and her mother had once hidden Christmas presents, Evelyn found a rusted metal box. Inside, nestled among her mother's journals, was a photograph that stopped her heart. Her mother, 30 years younger, beaming down at a small child in her arms, a child who looked exactly like Sophie. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Evelyn. You're not supposed to remember her." The message didn't frighten her. It energized her. The next morning, Evelyn drove to the Arden estate, a Gothic mansion perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. Mrs. Arden received her in a drawing room full of priceless antiques and lies. "That child is ours," Mrs. Arden said, her voice like ice. "You're a disturbed woman clinging to fantasies." Evelyn laid the photograph on the table between them. The effect was immediate and devastating. Mrs. Arden's composure shattered. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. The story that tumbled out was more horrifying than anything Evelyn could have imagined. The Hollow Creek Institute, a memory research facility funded by the Ardens and other wealthy families. Orphan children used as test subjects. Memories erased, identities rewritten. Sophie was Subject S, created to be the perfect, compliant daughter. "And you," Mrs. Arden said, her eyes filled with something like regret. "You were their first success. Subject E, your entire life. The lonely childhood, the librarian identity. It was all implanted. Your mother was one of our lead researchers. She grew a conscience. She tried to save you both." The revelation struck Evelyn with physical force. The quiet life she remembered, the solitary childhood, the empty adulthood, none of it was real. She was a construct, a ghost. And Sophie was her genetic mirror, her daughter, her sister, her second chance. Suddenly, sirens wailed outside. Detective Miller burst in, but this time his target was Mrs. Arden. "The story's gone public," he said. "It's over." In the days that followed, the scandal exploded across news networks. The Hollow Creek Institute was shuttered, its directors arrested. Evelyn learned that her mother had planted a fail-safe in the system, a way to expose the truth if anything happened to her. 6 months later, Evelyn and Sophie stood on the porch of a small seaside library, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of gold and rose. The sign above the door read, "The Ross Sanctuary, for those forgotten but not lost." Inside, The shelves were filled with stories of every kind, but the most important story was the one they were writing together. A story not of what was taken, but of what was found. A story that proved that even manufactured lives can contain real love, and that sometimes the people we're meant to save are the missing pieces of ourselves we never knew were lost. The quiet librarian had found her voice. The homeless girl had found her home. And in each other, they had discovered the one thing that even the most sophisticated science could not erase: the unbreakable bond of family.